Hello and welcome to The Sportcast, brought to you by your hosts Louis de Montfort and Harry Vardigans. On this episode, we shall discuss whether Britain is emerging as a sprinting powerhouse after the Great Britain's men's 4x100 metre relay win and the women's 4x100 metre relay silver at last week's IAAF World Championships. Also on the show, we shall be discussing the significance of tennis's Big Four. We are introducing a brand new section called The Mainstream, where we will be rounding up the biggest stories in the sporting world. So Harry, you were watching the IAAF World Championships. What were your thoughts on the performances of Great Britain?
We did well in a lot of different events, but overall we only came sixth.
Well, here's the thing. Before the relays took place at the end of the week, we only had one medal to show for it, Mo Farah's 10,000 metre win. And everyone was saying how we were missing, that this was a total failure because we weren't going to make the medal target set by UK Sport, which was 6 to 8 medals. So it was a good job that the relays produced at the very end. I think from my perspective, since we're now seeing an era at an end, because obviously we've got Mo Farah retiring from the track, we've got Usain Bolt also retiring, who's probably the greatest sprinter we've ever seen. I think there is now a gap there, and I wonder now with the talent that's emerging in Great Britain right now, can they fill the void in that sense?
Well, I suppose a lot of them would have been racing at the Athletics Championships. And if they are going to fill that void, they're not there yet, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. However, GB are always a strong team. They've got the funding, they've always got the talent pool. So maybe not next World Championships, but leading up to Tokyo, we will fill that void.
And you mean filling the void left by Usain Bolt? You think there's...
More than Mo Farah is the...
right.
Yeah.
Sort of a standard bearer for Great Britain athletics.
Yeah, exactly. Someone will emerge, We got Jessica Ennis has retired, obviously, but then you've got Karina Johnson-Thompson in the mix, and she's working her way up in the standards for heptathlon.
Yeah. No, I always feel with KJT, she's got so much potential. It's quite clear she's a very talented athlete. It just seems when it comes to the major events, we looked at London 2012, look at Beijing, the Beijing World Championships, Rio, and then these World Championships. Some seems to have a mental block.
Yeah, but she's still very young. I mean, she's only our age, isn't she, or a couple of years above. So she's still young. She still needs to. She's building up that experience. And performing at big events comes with experience.
Indeed. But going back to the sprinting, I was very, very impressed with quite a few of our sprinters. In particular, Dina Asher-Smith. She's had a terrible season with a horrible foot injury. And I think it's quite frankly quite incredible how she hasn't really been able to train an awful lot. And she's come to these World Championships. She came fourth in the 200 metre individual final, which is a brilliant achievement in my opinion. And then she ran an outstanding leg in the relay, which led to Great Britain winning silver. I mean, we were never going to catch the Americans, but getting that silver was, quite frankly, a really, really great achievement, and I think a really positive sign to the future. And then the other sprinter that stood out for me was Adam Jamili. Outstanding in the relay. He ran a 9-second split on the second leg. And yeah, that was pretty amazing considering he had been overlooked for the individual events. He was clearly very gutted because obviously he came fourth in the 200 meter final last year in Rio. So I think there's definitely a lot of the talent is there now because we're now starting to win on the global stage. It's now suddenly, I think we've left the days of disqualifications and not being able to get the baton round behind.
But that's the thing, like you say we're starting to win. We've only won once. And it's this typical sort of GB thing. Oh, we suddenly won one thing. We're going to be the best in the world. And it's like, to do that, I mean, Jamaica aren't just the best in the world because of Usain Bolt. They're the best in the world because of their whole history, you know. And also, you know, when was it? It was 2012. You had both Usain Bolt and Johan Blake, gold and silver. That's a true powerhouse in sprinting. And although, okay, we've come fourth in a couple of individual events, we haven't really got into the medals, and we haven't really got the performers. They're not on that level yet. They're decent, but they're not podium level yet.
Well, here's the thing. Obviously, you've got Usain Bolt going now. Justin Gatlin is going to, you know, he's 35 now. He can't go on much longer. You know, that is the Olympic champion and the world champion out of the picture. I think it's unlikely that Justin Gatlin's going to be at the World Championships in 2 years' time, and unlikely he's going to be in Tokyo. So, but we still have quality athletes out there. You know, athletes such as Andre de Grasse of Canada, who missed the World Championships last week. But when he comes back into the fold, I imagine he'll be one of the favourites to be contending for certainly the 100 metres, and possibly the 200 metres. But the reason why I am suggesting why we potentially could become a sprinting powerhouse, you know, Danny Talbot, he was making the finals of the individuals, as was Nathaniel Mitchell Blake, who ran a fantastic final 100 meters in the relay. You know, these guys, you know, they've been through the mill. They've experienced, you know, especially Jamili and Talbot in London 2012. They had an absolute nightmare there. They got disqualified, and it was just a horror show from a GB perspective. But here they are, 5 years later. They've put those rights to those wrongs. They've come away with the gold on the global stage. So I really do think there is hope. But as you do say, it is very much early days. We've got to see if they can keep performing, and ultimately they're going to be judged on their Olympic performance, because that is the big event.
All that matters. That's
all that matters. World Championships are great, but I think every athlete would happily sacrifice 3 gold medals in the World Championships for an Olympic gold.
Definitely, yeah.
So,
but one thing you got to consider is, great, these athletes have, you know, we won the gold in the men's 4x100 and got silver in the women's 4x100, and that's a big surprise, and everyone's like happy and yay. But if you're a powerhouse, you're expected to win. You know, Usain Bolt was expected to win. It was surprised that he got bronze. If one of our athletes got bronze in the 100 meter individual, we'd be like, oh my God, that's the best thing ever. Usain Bolt got it. We're like, how has anyone beaten him? We're happy if our athletes reach the final. We should expect our athletes to reach the final if we want to be a powerhouse. At the moment, you're right, it is a good achievement, but to be a powerhouse, you need that higher level of expectation.
Yeah, and the consistency, of course, that comes along with it. Okay, well, that's brilliant. We're going to move on now to tennis. So, obviously, since Wimbledon, tennis hasn't quite been in the limelight. However, in the wake of Roger Federer's 2 Grand Slam wins this year, winning the Australian Open and at Wimbledon, is the Big Four still going strong?
At the moment, yes. But they're definitely getting towards the end.
Because I think it's sort of, in my mind anyway, it felt that after Roger Federer's 2012 win, apart from, you know, the fact that he was the greatest tennis player of all time anyway at that stage.
He is the greatest.
I just felt that he sort of lost his mojo, didn't he, for a bit? He wasn't really contending for Grand Slams anymore.
Yeah.
There was a period. And then suddenly 2017 comes around. He's had a huge break last year, which I think has done him the world of good. And now suddenly, boom, he's back. Of course, Novak Djokovic has also been was tremendously successful in 2015 and for 2014.
He went quiet recently though, didn't he? He got knocked out in one of the first rounds in one of the majors.
Here's the thing: Novak Djokovic, he has lost his mojo at the moment. He's been going through quite a few coaches recently, so he isn't firing on all cylinders.
Rafael Nadal's just got back from injury, isn't he?
Exactly. Nadal obviously has had injury. However, Nadal is now going to be world number 1 in 2 weeks' time because he's going to because Andy Murray's pulling out of the Cincinnati Masters, and Federer also isn't going to be playing.
This is the thing as well. They're old. You know what? Federer's 35. Yeah. So they get injured like Rafael Nadal did, and they take so long to recover. It's just so much harder to get that fitness back and get back into, as you say, your mojo. Rafael Nadal's done that, but it took him a while to come back after that injury.
So I reckon we've only had... So since 2003, there's only been a handful of other Grand Slam winners other than Murray, Djokovic, Federer and Nadal. One of which has been Wawrinka, Marin Cilic and Juan Martin Del Potro. Do you think potentially now... unless Federer is able to keep this going for the foreseeable future, as in going into 2018, I wonder if the Big Four is actually not done at all. I think they still, Djokovic is still quite fairly, he's not too old. He's roughly the same age as Murray, about 30 years old. So he's still got a bit of time, he's still got something to give. Murray, and we all know what Djokovic is capable, of course, as well. Murray, well, he's always sort of been considered the lesser of the Big Four just purely because of the amount of Grand Slams he's won compared to the rest of them. However, he's got a bit of a back problem and a hip problem, it would appear now, and I think he's going to be following Roger Federer's cue in taking a good amount of time out to get him right. So I reckon he could well miss the US Open, or he might enter the US Open, but not expecting to win it. But I expect him to be putting an awful lot of work and preparation and getting himself right for 2018.
So I don't, going back to the Big Four, I don't see them lasting much past 2020 in the Tokyo Olympics. Because then, if you think about it, you'll have Murray will be 34, something like that. Federer, he'll be 40. So I reckon the majority of them, if not all of them, will retire after the 2020 Olympics or around that time. So I think 3 more years left of the Big Four, I would say.
I don't think we can really put a time scale on the Big Four. It's simply just too hard to tell at this moment in time, and there is a possibility there is a lot more to come. Or, on the other hand, injury may strike, and that's that. So,
well, they could in the end do a Usain Bolt and try push it too far and pull a hamstring or just not perform on the day.
Should Usain Bolt have, on that note, should he have perhaps retired after Rio?
It's difficult to say. It's all about personal reasons, really. When he retires and what he wanted to do. I didn't think he was being greedy, even though I just said he did. Because if he was being greedy, he'd go for another Olympic gold medal. I just think he was trying to retire on less of a high. Because I think if you're retiring off an Olympic gold medal, it's like, wow. Oh, what do I do now? Whereas if you go on for another year in the World Championships, which is a lot lower key, it brings you down to earth a little bit easier.
So now we're going to move on to the mainstream section, which is a roundup of the world sporting stories, as I mentioned earlier. So a lot of talk is circling and surrounding the fight between Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor. Your thoughts, Harry?
A lot of people talk about, oh yeah, it's a stupid fight. It's the worst fight ever. I don't know why it's happening. It shouldn't happen. All this, and I think they need to look deeper into it. So they say, okay, it's happening in boxing. It's not Conor McGregor's first martial art, I guess you'd call it, and it is Floyd Mayweather's domain. But it doesn't mean he can't box. It doesn't mean he hasn't got the boxing skills, and we know he's got a big punch. And the other factor we got to think about is Floyd Mayweather is undefeated. Conor McGregor is also undefeated stand-up, which is essentially boxing and kicking. But he mainly does his knockouts via punching and striking. So if you look at just pure stand-up, they're both undefeated.
That's an interesting perspective. I never really considered it like that. I just think, I mean, I'm in two minds on the matter because personally I think this is a ridiculous fight. But on the other hand, I can completely see why it's happened because there is an awful lot of money involved. And if I was Floyd Mayweather or Conor McGregor and I was being told if you take up this fight, you're gonna pocket $100 million, whatever happens. Wouldn't you take it? So
100%. It's a win-win for.
It's a win for everyone.
Win-win for
those
everyone.
Both parties.
I was watching an interview yesterday with Floyd Mayweather. He said, "How much do you reckon you could make off this?" And he was saying, with everything included, pay-per-view, what they get from the fight, and potential sponsorships, he's saying above 300 million for one fight.
Dollars or pounds?
Dollars.
Wow. That's a huge amount. A huge amount.
I mean,
of money.
I would jump into the ring and fight him and get knocked out for $300 million easily.
Yeah. No,
so
I definitely.
You can see why Conor McGregor is doing it, but I think he's got a chance. I do think he could win.
Well, here's the thing with Conor McGregor as well. He's got this opportunity because if he wins, that is going to be absolutely massive. It's gonna be huge.
It'll be one of the biggest sporting upsets.
Well, but also his reputation is going to go soaring. And it will be about 10 times higher than it already
His
is.
confidence will be way above. Yeah,
he'll be
he's
got a lot to gain from this.
Oh,
and
100%.
really not an awful lot to lose because he's expected to lose.
Well, he could have his reputation damaged though. That's the thing.
If it's an absolute fraction.
It would be damaged. What would go down is, I think the UFC have more to lose than Conor McGregor, just simply because people are sort of seeing it as, it's boxing versus MMA. Which one's better? Even though it's just in one of their domains. So I feel like if Conor McGregor does lose, the UFC will take a bit of a hit on their next pay-per-views and their fan base. It will become less broad. Whereas if he wins, the UFC will gain a very wide variety of viewers and fans. So yeah, it's a difficult one, but I think going back to the actual fight, Conor McGregor can win, and people have doubted him all the time and been like, how can you beat someone that's never been beaten? And I think 20, 25 years Mayweather hasn't ever been beaten in. But they said the same about Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo hadn't lost a fight in 15 years. And then Conor McGregor goes and knocks him out in 13 seconds.
Yeah, and you see, this is the thing. But I'm just looking at the stats and I'm looking what it's like on paper. You've got a man who's been undefeated for 49 fights. And those were all against professional boxers, some of whom have been some incredible boxers that Floyd Mayweather has faced. Oscar De La Hoya, Manny Pacquiao, Ricky Hatton. Yeah. These fighters have all come against him and have all come up short. And for me, in my mind, okay, he hasn't been in the ring. He's probably quite ring rusty, and that can be pretty bad for a boxer.
Definitely.
But with all his experience, and I'm pretty sure he hasn't been completely out of it, I'm sure he's been ticking over. I reckon it's just a question for me in my mind whether he decides to knock him out. And he said that, and I think in an interview the other day, didn't he, that he was looking to knock McGregor out. He didn't want to go over distance.
Yeah.
Which actually says something, because before, in his prime, he won a lot of fights going the distance and on points, just jabbing away at your opponent, wearing them down. And that's the other thing as well, he's got probably the best defense of any boxer, really.
Yeah.
And that's going to be pretty hard for McGregor to crack down.
But the thing about this, right, is first of all, he's got fighting speed, so he's going to come out. He said he's going to come out running at McGregor. He's going to be attacking him, pushing him. Looking back at other fights that McGregor's had, that's exactly what Jose Aldo did. Jose Aldo normally hangs back, waits for the time to sort of do a takedown, use a bit of his jiu-jitsu, but he went straight in for the kill. Was like, I'm going to knock him out. He got emotionally invested, and he got knocked out in 13 seconds. The thing McGregor can do is he can attack whilst moving backwards. A lot of boxers don't quite have that same ability just because of the foot movement and how the difference between how MMA works and boxing works. So even if Mayweather's coming at McGregor, he can still attack and be dangerous. But the other thing is, McGregor, I'm with the view, McGregor has also got to go out him, and he's got to knock out Mayweather. If it goes to points, McGregor doesn't have the technique to win it on points, I don't believe. So if they're both saying they're going to run at each other, it's going to be a pretty exciting fight for at least the first 5 rounds.
I certainly think the first 2 rounds could be pretty exciting. And it wouldn't be any surprise to me if McGregor tries to knock him out straight away. It would not be any surprise.
100%.
So, what's your prediction then? I think it's a pretty tough. It's not as easy, I think, as everyone might think, to be honest.
No, thinking. I don't know. I would say 60-40 Mayweather to win on points. 40% of me believes McGregor will knock out Mayweather. I don't think Mayweather will be able to knock out McGregor. 60% of me thinks Mayweather will probably win on points.
Okay, well, here's my view. Neither of them are going to win on points. I even don't think Mayweather will win it on points because first of all, he's too old, and I don't think he has what it takes to take it to the distance. Just because of his age and his fitness as a result. However, Mayweather can pack a punch. He can do it. He has got a punch on him. So I am backing Mayweather because of his experience, his know-how, his knowledge of the arena. He's boxed in Las Vegas for a long time. He knows the arena. I think the odds are firmly against McGregor here. And I think it's going to be a Mayweather within No, I don't think the fight will go beyond 6 rounds. There we go. Mayweather to win it within 6.
You see, Mayweather can pack a punch, and he, out of all his fights, he has knocked out, won by knockout a similar amount of times McGregor has, maybe even more. But in boxing, you get 10 seconds to get back up. MMA, you don't. McGregor has never been knocked out before. He's been damaged by Nate Diaz, but again, that was at 170. So Nate Diaz is a hell of a lot heavier than Floyd Mayweather is, so he can probably pack an even harder punch. And also in MMA, you get kicked in the head, and McGregor's used to getting hit in the head pretty hard, either by punch or by kick or by being on the ground and someone dropping an elbow on his face, and yet he still hasn't been knocked out.
Indeed. Well, let's move on to what else was going on in the sporting world. So over the weekend, obviously the Premier League started up. We had Manchester United winning 4-0. For me, that was the result that really stood out. Lukaku getting a double. Chelsea having an absolute shocker.
Yeah, so it's early days, and obviously in your first few games you want to be getting points on the board, and as many as you can. In Chelsea's case, they did get 2 players sent off. And, it's not great losing to Burnley, but especially at home as well. But it's, we know Chelsea can perform better than that. And I think they just had a bad day. Everyone has a bad day. It's not good, but it's not going to be a representation of how their season goes, I believe.
It's only, of course, the opening weekend, and there is a lot of football to be played between now and the end of the season.
Exactly.
But I think there are quite a lot of problems brewing at Chelsea. Certainly surrounding Diego Costa. He's still in Brazil, he's had a standoff with Chelsea. It just sounds a complete nightmare. And honestly, I think Chelsea have really got to, as much as Costa, have got to sort this out, because this is providing, from my perspective at least, it's unsettling quite a few people at the club, and that never bodes well, whether or not you're the Premier League champions or not. On the other hand, moving to Manchester United, they were mightily impressive, I thought. I think if they got another signing, they would be the complete package. That signing could be another, probably to shore up that defence. The defence has been okay, hasn't been incredible. So if they can get that marquee defender, I think they'll be on course for the Premier League. So moving in other news, obviously we've had the US PGA over the weekend too. Another major champion in golf now. This is quite an interesting era in golf we're in right now, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. We were saying earlier, you haven't had someone dominate in the golf scene since Tiger Woods. And, you got Rory McIlroy and Jordan Spieth, who have won several each, but they haven't dominated.
On the other hand, while we may not have any individuals dominating, it's certainly seen that America is dominating world golf at the moment. We've obviously had Justin Thomas, he's just won the US PGA. We've got Jordan Spieth, the winner of the Open. Okay, Sergio Garcia did win the Masters. But also you've got Dustin Johnson as well, the world number 1, who's also American. You've got a whole host of Americans in the top of the rankings. And I quite frankly think Europe is quite glad that the Ryder Cup isn't this September, because as things stand, the Americans are looking very, very strong, and I wouldn't bet against them retaining the cup when they go to Paris next year.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, that is all we have time for today. Please do follow us on our Facebook page if you haven't already done so. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us, follow us, share us, you name it. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast, and we'll see you next time. Ta-da.
See ya.